When we talk about time management, what do we really mean? What are we talking about? There are 1,440 minutes in a day. And theoretically, we're spending about a third of those working. It's probably more for most of us. Regardless of what fills that time during the day, we only have a limited amount of time to get things done. And of course, it feels like it's never enough. So managing time is not about finding or creating more time during your day. It's about accomplishing the most important things. It's about doing those important tasks in the most efficient manner. You need to ensure that your jobs get done, and that ensures that your customers are happy, and that gives you, of course, more time to spend doing the things that you enjoy, which is what we want at the end. So, most people who are struggling with time management fall into one of two categories. The first category is, I have so much to do, but I have so little time to do it. And I think a lot of us feel like that at one point or another. The second category that most people fall into is, I have so much time, I can do it later. And those are the procrastinators. So no matter which of these two traps you sometimes fall into, you face the same ultimate problem, and that is the idea that time can change. Time actually doesn't change, so we have to. So today, we'll focus on helpful time management practices and how to become more productive so that you don't fall into those traps or that you fall into them less often. When you leave here today, try doing just one of these things for a couple of weeks and see if it makes a difference. If it doesn't improve your time management, you might need to change your follow-through, or you might need to pick something else off the list. So the first one that we want to discuss, the first practice to consider, is lists. If it's important enough to do, then it's most of us today are using smartphones and laptops, and if you're using Office 365 or whatever prior version of Outlook you have, then you already have a built-in task list that can be pushed, that can push reminders to your phone, your laptop, and your tablet, and it can keep the list synchronized between devices for you. Don't implement a practice that makes your work Don't implement a practice that makes your workflow complicated or dependent on something you cannot easily access. The real question is what's important enough to make the list. Peter Drucker, who's known as the founder of modern management, and he's the inventor of the concept of the knowledge worker, he points out that we need to choose how we spend our time. Because if we're spending our time on things that we shouldn't be doing, obviously that's not efficient, and that's only going to hurt us. So how do we choose? To help us decide what gets put onto the list, we can use a simple theory called the pickle jar. This theory uses, no surprise, a pickle jar and its contents to represent time management. The inside of the jar represents a person's time, and all of the things that take up that time are rocks, pebbles, sand, and water that squeeze into all of the available space. Rocks are the important thing that require immediate, significant attention, and they produce a huge benefit when they're accomplished. Pebbles are tasks that produce a benefit, but they're not as important as the ones represented by the larger rocks. Grains of sand signify the small, time-consuming tasks that are relatively easy to do, but they're not that important, and they fill in some of the space in between. If you think about it, non-urgent text messages, they're a distraction, they take up time, they take your focus away from what you're doing. That's sand. Email checking, if you're doing it constantly, it's taking time, but it's probably not providing a higher value. So those are the types of things that you want to start thinking about. How do I do that better? Water fills in what little space remains. It represents the tasks and the idle moments that are left over and just kind of take up whatever's left. So With the pickle jar theory, it's used by time management consultants to illustrate how relatively unimportant activities and relatively unimportant commitments can easily take up too much of your time. If you're filling your day with the small, trivial tasks, the sand and the water, then they're not important enough to really be using your time, and they prevent you from using your time to complete larger and more important tasks and projects. When you prioritize your list, you need to weed off the things you're never going to get to. Nobody wants to build a list of 30 things and see 27 of them still on the list at the end of the day. And when you think about it, most of the things that you start weeding off your list, they're going to fall into the sand and the water category because they're not giving you a lot of benefit, but they are taking a lot of your time. Now, the second time management practice to consider is to set deadlines. Certainly when you're working on a project, you may have noticed that when you're working with other people, if you don't tell them that they need to provide something and accomplish their tasks by a certain date and time, it drags on and on and on. So here's the important thing. There's no point in setting deadlines if you make executive decisions to push them back all the time. When you set a deadline, you have to try your best to stick to it. Setting deadlines a few days before the task absolutely has to be done will help you focus on using less time and more efficient time to get it done, making sure it's done in time. It allows for the possibility that other things will get in the way, giving you that cushioning that you need, but still allowing you to get the task done by your committed date and time. Certainly when you're communicating with customers, they never ever want to hear, I'll get this done by Friday, and they don't get it until Tuesday. All that does is irritate people. So it's very important to set a deadline and keep your deadline. Abraham Lincoln said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Bruce Lee said, "If you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done." I think they're both right, but what can you do with it? Try Parkinson's law. This theory states that the time required to complete a particular task will expand according to the amount of time it's allotted. So, if something really should only take an hour, but you give yourself 2 days, you're going to take 2 days to get it done. Conversely, if you give yourself less time to do something, it'll lead to faster completion. So if you slowly reduce the time allotted for any given task, eventually you'll find the sweet spot that you can get it done without feeling rushed. So, if you're interested in testing this theory, here's how you go about it. Try allocating half as much time each morning to a mundane task. So, what's mundane? Checking your email. If necessary, set a timer. You'll find yourself dealing with each item in your email account inbox faster. At the end of the time, look at how much you've accomplished in the time you set. So the odds are good that you'll exceed your own expectations. Now, before you get cocky, here's what you're going to do. The next day, do it again. Cut the time that you're allotting for that task. As you continue to allow yourself less time, you're likely going to do a better job prioritizing only those emails that actually matter. You're going to skim the subject lines, you're going to dump the spam, dump the advertisements, and dump other meaningless messages. Your attention is going to zero in on the most important emails that must be addressed immediately. By doing this exercise, you're going to find that it helps you find the tasks that truly need to be completed. So if you think back to the pickle jar, it's going to help you identify the rocks and the pebbles and weed out the sand and the water. For each task that you add to your list, try allowing yourself a little less time than you think you need. The odds are pretty good that you'll only need the time you set aside. If you find you can't get it done in that time, that's where you'll adjust to find that sweet spot. Now, the third time management practice to consider is multitasking, or rather, not multitasking. So what happens when you multitask? It works for a while, but then things get jumbled, and then they get blurred. So our minds work better when we're truly able to focus and concentrate on one thing. An alternative to multitasking is batching. Batching is a way to combine a bunch of things into one block of time. So we're picking on email a lot today. We're going to continue to do that here. Rather than checking your email every 5 minutes all day long, set aside time and check your email once in the morning, once midday, and once at the end of the day. Because email's not supposed to be real-time communication. If somebody needs you urgently, they're going to call or text you. If you do that batching process, you'll find that you're able to prioritize your time, you're able to focus better when you're not being distracted by these small tasks. And that should improve your efficiency throughout the day. Fourth time management practice today is delegating. So it's not me, it's you. William Penn, who's noted for being the founder of Pennsylvania, said, "Time is what we want most, but what we spend worst." And what he meant by that is we tend to spend time on things that we don't need to be spending time on. If you can delegate responsibility for the things that you don't need to do, things that somebody else can take care of while you're doing something that's higher priority and something that gives you more benefit, then your day is going to become much less stressful. It's going to become much more productive. You're going to get the things done that you need to get done by handing off the things that somebody else can handle for you. A good example of that is there are many business managers that will tell business owners, focus on the things that make the most sense for your business, the things that you control, the things that are your value add to your customers, and outsource the things that you don't need to do. So if you happen to be a technician and you want to go out and get some work and work on IP networks and other things like that, that's great, but does that mean that you have to create your own website? Not necessarily. There might be somebody who can do that for you. Does that mean you need to be the person that does your quarterly taxes? Not necessarily. You can get an accountant that can do that for you. If you spend your time on the things that are of the most benefit to you, allowing other experts to do things that you're not an expert at, then you're going to become more efficient. For those of us that like to be in control, the thought of this really gives us anxiety. And the truth of the matter is, no matter how good we are, we just can't do everything. We take on more than we can handle. And what we need to recognize is that delegation is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of intelligence. Surround yourself with smart people and allow them to do the things that they're smart at. That's the way to become more productive. So if you find competent, reliable people and share some of the responsibilities, it's going to allow you to be less stressed and more productive. Finally, the fifth time management practice today is utilizing your downtime. The fact of it is, life requires balance. So your downtime should be used to clear your head rather than trying to fit in some of the unimportant tasks that don't matter. If you use all of your downtime for planning and prioritizing, it can lead to increased stress and burnout. So you want to be careful with that. In the end, the goal is to use your time more effectively so you can achieve everything on your list. The 80-20 rule applies to time management. If 20% of your tasks provide you with 80% of your benefit, shouldn't those be the tasks that you're given the top priority? If you allow yourself to get buried in the unimportant tasks, you're going to end up like this guy. And we don't want that. So try at least one of the 5 practices we discussed today. Give it at least 2 weeks of effort and see if you're better off for it. If you manage your time well, you'll make realistic commitments to your customer. You're going to increase their satisfaction, and then you'll get more work from them. When you learn and maintain good time management skills, You'll find freedom from deadline pressures and from stress in general. You'll be more productive, procrastinate less, and have more time to relax, which helps further decrease stress and anxiety. So if you visit these resources, you can get more information about time management and other relevant industry information. Of course, Field Nation is a great place to go. Our blog includes tips that come from instructors, and you can look at the different courses and programs that provide you with project management and time management skills. imcca.org is also a great organization to join. It's free for end users, so check that out and you'll find that you get great information, most of it for free, and that will provide you with another resource. Jillian, I'm going to pass it back to you for a moment.
Yeah, thank you, Jules. You were able to put quite a bit into that small 30-minute session. So we're going to open it up now for Q&A. You just submit your question online, and I'll check them to see if there's any that people pop up. But while we're waiting for those, Jules, it sounds like you have some opportunities for our Field Nation users.
We certainly do. Anybody who's participating today, of course, is going to be getting electronic access to project management class, the first session of it, which is lead you to your PMP certification. And that's something that customers like to see. It's typically in the top 5 in terms of skills that employers are looking for, and also that people that are hiring contractors are looking for. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. We've been working with Field Nation to make sure that we're coming up with programs that are going to be the most benefit to this community. And in working with the providers and the buyers, what the feedback we've received is that everybody needs to get the most out of both types of learning, live learning and electronic learning, because the most important thing that you have to balance right now is your time. So you need the convenience benefits, but you also need the ability to interact with live instructors. To that end, we've created borderless learning classes. So signing up for a borderless learning class gives you unlimited access to a class for a year. The classes are delivered via live virtual delivery, so over the web, in 3-hour sessions twice a week for 3 weeks. So if you decided that project management was a skill that you wanted to get, you could buy the project management class, and for a year, you could attend that class as many times as you wanted. You would also have access for the full year to the full electronic course. If there are any labs or activities under that course, you would have access to that for a year. And the important part of this is, as you're going through these different things, you have access to mentoring. So you can open up a chat box, communicate with a mentor, and if you're in the middle of watching the electronic training and you're not quite sure about something or you want it clarified, you can get an expert to help you with that. There are also practice exams, pre-exams and post-exams, if you're interested in earning the certification. The reason that these programs are put together, of course, are to give you access to everything you need. But one of the things that we were able to do in putting this together is really reduce the price points for you. So while most traditional classes, for example, the project management boot camp class is typically somewhere between $3,000 and $3,300, we're able to offer this program for $19.95, including 1-year access to anything for a single class. So when you go look at these classes, it's a great value for you to help you on a continuous learning path in order to have the certifications that you need to service your customers. Now, if you are looking at 2 or more classes, then you may want to look at one of our borderless learning programs, because for the price of 2 classes, you actually get a program that includes multiple classes. You can choose from any of these 5 programs. For the price of 2 classes, you get all of the classes within the program. So if it's the network class, you get the route and switch, CCNA security, the design, the data center, the CompTIA class. For project management and leadership, you get the project management classes, the leadership, there's 56 leadership classes included in it, as well as a few other things. So if you're going to be looking at continuous learning, again, take a look at these programs. They're designed exactly for this community, to give you the best of all worlds and to minimize the impact of being out of the field. Then if you like the just learning by yourself, electronically accessing information, of course you can look at the on-demand program where you can view recordings of classes and view videos that are put up about different topics, and then you can go down that path on your own. So thank you for participating today. We really appreciate it. And we know that some of you are going to be interested in dealing with mobile malware, which is our next hot topic, and that's going to be on February 17th. Julian, back to you.
Yeah, okay, Jules, we do have a few questions. The first one is, what is your advice for multitasking?
So multitasking is interesting because multitasking is a distraction, and everybody likes to say, oh, well, you know, you need to be able to multitask. Well, you do need to be able to manage your time. You need to be able to get multiple things done throughout the day, but that doesn't mean you have to be doing 2 or more things at the same time. So when you think about multitasking, determine what are the things that are allowable distractions and what are the things that are non-beneficial distractions. So it comes down to defining what's urgent and what's not. What's urgent is getting anything done that helps you improve your business, getting anything done that helps you accomplish something for a customer, getting anything done that increases the money that you're receiving, anything that you're doing that has that impact on your day is probably going to be a top priority. If you are getting distracted by text messages that really are questions that can wait, that are not urgent, if you're getting distracted by checking your email over and over throughout the day rather than kind of limiting it to certain times of the day, then you're allowing yourself to multitask in an inefficient way. So start weeding out the things that are not beneficial to your day. Start batching those things and doing them periodically throughout the day. And that's going to help you make sure that your time is used efficiently. Every time you're distracted keeps you from accomplishing something quickly.
Okay, the next question is, the timer for email review sounds good, but how do you have the time each day? As in, cut it in half.
So how do you have the time? Oh, I see. So how do you cut it in half?
Yep.
So start with what you think you're doing today. If you added up all the minutes through the day that you messed around with email, is it an hour? Is it 4 hours? Is it, what are you doing? Give yourself a time period. Start with 30 minutes. I'll spend 30 minutes dealing with email in the morning, 30 minutes in the middle of the day, 30 minutes at the end of the day. The following day, try 15, 15, 15. When you get to the point where you're feeling that you really can't do it justice, that's where you back off, cutting it in half, right? So maybe start at that 30-minute mark and go from there.
Okay. The next question is, will this course provide individuals with the PMP certification?
The course that we're giving you electronic access to, we're just giving you access to the first session of it, so one component of it. So if you go through the whole course, yes, that's designed to help you earn your PMP certification.
So the next question kind of follows along those lines. Does this course satisfy the PMP PDU prerequisite?
That I'll have to get back to you on. This session today, or, right, because the question is it this session today or the session we're giving you access to?
I believe the session you're getting access to.
Yeah, so the session we're giving you access to is an authorized class from authorized by PMI, so it is absolutely designed to meet all of their requirements.
The next question is about getting a copy of the presentation, how to go about that, and a reminder of the PMP course price. Can you clarify the $19.95 as what the actual dollar amount is, meaning like $19.95 as in $20 or $19.95 as in $2,000?
Sorry. Yes, $1,995. Sorry about that. So everybody who attended today will get a login to the learning management system where they'll be able to download this presentation. Field Nation will be posting this session on YouTube, so you'll be able to access it there. And the price for the full PMP bootcamp through Borderless Learning is $1,995. If you were to go to a traditional PMP bootcamp class, it would cost you somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500.
Okay. The next question is, how do you balance telephone calls, emails, and other forms of communication?
That is an excellent question because people struggle with this every day. So we've got email, we've got text messaging, we've got instant messaging, chats, we've got telephone calls. So now, how do you juggle it, right? What you have to decide is, how are you going to do business? Telephone calls and text messages should be for immediate needs. It's real-time communication, and it should be for something that's urgently needed now. Email should be used for things that are not urgent. So sometimes you do need to email something that needs to be urgently addressed. That should be followed up with a text or a phone call to say, I've sent it over to you so that you now have it. It needs to be urgently addressed. It's important to start organizing your communication and prioritizing it the same way you are with every other task that you're doing during the day. Real-time communication is designed for things that need to be addressed in real time. That's voicemail, or that's voice messaging, voice calling, sorry, not messaging. Voice calling, video calls, text messages, all of that's real-time communication. Those are the things that are supposed to be urgent. If people are communicating with you that way and it's not urgent, then you need to direct them to the proper way to communicate with you. I think you'll find in most businesses that's pretty easy, where some people try to have trouble dealing with that is with more of the personal interaction. And that may be just directing people to say, hey, there are times of the day that I really can't be available for this, but if you want to text me, before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. or at lunchtime, right? So those are the types of things that you need to decide what works within your day and how to address it. But I would say definitely give a higher priority to real-time communication and then start directing that to be the more urgent and the higher priority.
The next question kind of follows up to that is, what do you consider the most effective for communicating email, text, or conversation?
Depends on what the conversation is. Again, this is one of those things where you have to decide how important is it. For example, sometimes I'll get an email from somebody and I'll reply to it and they'll reply to it and I realize we're having a conversation. At that point, I stop emailing and I pick up the phone or I make a video call to them and we have live communication. If there's something that is urgent, that is definitely something where I'm going to try to reach somebody on a video call, a voice call, or a text message. And the text message may be, hey, do you have time right now? This is urgent. Can we jump on a call? So I definitely try to prioritize that real-time communication for things that do need immediate attention. I use email for things that need to be documented, and I use email for things that are maybe not urgent, because I know the people I'm dealing with are going to look at email maybe 3 times during the day. I know that if I send an email, I'm not expecting an immediate response. So that's how I start to organize how I communicate. And then as you move forward, there are going to be things that you need to adjust for your customers. So you may have a customer who loves to text you, but turns out maybe it's not urgent. So that's where you have to determine, can I lead them over to a communication that makes more sense, or do I ignore their text until I'm ready to deal with it at the same time as I would have if it had been an email? Those are the types of decisions you'll have to make, but real-time communication is definitely the thing that should get the top priority, because people are expecting a more urgent response.
Okay, the next question is, does PMP require ongoing CEUs, or is it just a one-time exam?
I can look that up for you, and we'll put the answer to that in the blog on the Field Nation website. So when you connect to Compass Business Solutions, because that was our former name, we're going to rebrand that shortly under Borderless Learning. When you look at partners on Field Nation and go to Compass Business Solutions, you'll see that information in the blog there. I'm not certain what requirements there are for PMP for continuing education, but we will find out.
Okay. And what is the best way to delegate work to someone without them getting testy?
Well, that depends on whether you're the boss or not the boss. When you're the boss, it can be a little easier because it's enough to say, hey, this is something I need you to do. When you're not the boss and you're delegating work, that's where you have to make sure that you're handling things appropriately. So nobody likes to hear, hey, this isn't my job, I need you to do this instead. But what you can say is, hey, I'm taking care of this piece of it. Can you take care of that piece of it so that we can get this done in time? One of the ways that things normally can get delegated in an appropriate manner is to make sure that they're being delegated by who's ever running the project or the activity. So if you work in an office, or you're contracted to work in an office, and you're there to do IT work, and somehow you've gotten roped into doing something that's not normally what you would do, maybe changing the ink in the printer or something, that's something that you deal with individually to say, okay, whoever it is that's using this printer needs to know how to do this. Maybe you train them on how to do it. Maybe you leave instructions on how to do it. And maybe you communicate with who's ever in charge of that area to say, hey, this is something that's not getting done timely because I'm dealing with the higher priority things that you've given me, so perhaps somebody else could take the lead on this. There are many ways to hand things off, and the important thing when you hand it off is to be respectful of the time of the person you're handing it to. You know that you have to prioritize your day for the most important things. You also know whoever you're handing it to needs to prioritize the day for their most important things. So as you're delegating, it's really important to hand things off to the appropriate people. And when you do it, be nice about it. Sometimes it's going to come down to you have to have somebody step in and say, hey, the appropriate person to do this is somebody else. But when you can hand it off yourself, that's the best way to get it done.
And Jules, that is it for our questions.
All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody participating today. Thank you so much for that. And I look forward to hearing from any of you that have any questions about this.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. Bye now.